Hey Tui, how is it possible that one of the worst plays I've ever read in my life ended up being one of the best theatrical experiences I've ever had in my life? You're right, little buddy, it must be magic. Welcome to Teacup for One. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and this is an exciting day, friends, because I'm about to do my first ever Teacup Theatre review. It only took 2.5 years, but things where I am, aka Ontario, Canada, are finally opened up enough that we can have live theatre again, and it's kind of emotional. Pre-pandemonium, I was in a theater at least once a week. I mean, I was technically in a theater every day because I was working in a theater, but I was seeing theater multiple times a month. So to go for over 2 years and not see a production, that was a lot for me. So I knew one of my first theatrical experiences back had to be something magical. And so I decided to check all of my pretension at the door and go see the biggest, most commercialized, dare I say, almost theme park-esque theatrical experience I had available to me. It was something that spoke to a fandom that's very near and dear to my heart, even if the person who created said fandom is a terrible human being. But all of that aside, I went to see the Toronto production of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. No doubt if you're a Potterhead, you know all about this play and its infamy. If you're not a Potterhead, basically the script was released in 2016 when the first production opened, probably in England, and they made the script readily available to people around the world, as a book. They even they were sneaky about it. They advertised it as though it was the 8th book in the Harry Potter franchise, even though they literally just meant that, it's published as a book, but it's still a play. It was a big deal. But anyway, when people got over that, they actually read the play and realized that it's not a great play. But a lot of people who saw the production in England and then later on when it went to Broadway maintained that it was an amazing experience. So I was just so intrigued to see if that was actually true. So today, we're going to be looking at my experience going to see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and also one of my first times back in the theater in 2.5 years. So I did capture some footage of the day because it wasn't just about seeing the play for me, it was about having a full-out Toronto adventure. So come along with me for the adventure. I'm going to show you the vlog footage, then we're going to reconvene back here in the Teacup studio, and I'm going to give you my review. But first, let's throw it back to past Matt.
Friends, we are on another Teacup adventure, and today is extra special, dare I say extra magical, for a few reasons, because we are going to be seeing, and by we I mean me, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Now, years ago when I heard that there was going to be a Harry Potter play, I was thrilled. It was everything I wanted and more. Then I actually read the play, and it was everything I was hoping it wouldn't be and slightly less. But I'm still so exhilarated for this production because from what I understand, it is just a theatrical spectacle for the ages. My original plan was for this to be my big return to the theater in over 2 years, but then that plan kind of went by the wayside because I went to a magic show. Then I went to see something at the Shaw Festival. Then I went to go see some friends in Rocky Horror. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is being produced in a beautiful space. So this is now known as the Ed Mirvish Theatre, more specifically the CAA Ed Mirvish Theatre. It's been around for over 100 years. So as I understand it, it was built in 1920 and it's gone through a lot of names. It was probably best known as the Pantages Theatre. And this is where the original Toronto production of Phantom of the Opera was put up with the infamous Garth Drabinsky himself. But nevertheless, theater is back. I could not be more thrilled. And to celebrate, I actually got down into the downtown Toronto core about 5.5, 6 hours before the show actually starts, because I also haven't been in this part of the city again since 2019, 2020. So we're going to explore the city a little bit. We're going to find as many Harry Potter-esque things as we can in and around the area, and then we're going to go see the show. Let's make some magic. Okay, so we are now walking down Dundas. So the Ed Mirvish Theatre home of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, is pretty much right at Yonge and Dundas, which is kind of like Toronto's sad attempt at having their own version of Times Square. But if you walk straight down Dundas for like 15 or 16 minutes, I have been told by the internet that there is a wizard market. Somehow I wound up walking on the unsafe side of the sidewalk. Oh, and now there's a streetcar that's gonna try to hit me. Whoop. It's the art gallery. I love the art gallery. I can't afford to go to the art gallery. Let's keep walking.
The Wizard Market is an independent retailer in Toronto located across from the Art Gallery of Ontario, or the AGO, or the AGO, and they specialize in all things Wizarding World. So, the merchandise is cool, but visiting the store is just an experience in and of itself. Like, the location feels like something straight out of the books. It's tucked away into this lower unit, it has this cool mini courtyard outside, you get to meet Fluffy on the way in, and they encourage you to take a photo with Fluffy and Voldemort's wand. The store is this cool, eclectic mix of licensed merchandise and some items that looked like they were either from small shops or independently made. There were shirts, pins, Funko Pops, mini Funko Pops. They had a section dedicated to merchandise for each house. And there's just so much stuff tucked away that exploring this store is almost like a treasure hunt. I mean, it was kind of like walking through Etsy, but without the capitalism.
All right, the Wizarding Market. It was everything I wanted it to be. It was so cool. I picked up a few things. I'll show you what they are once we get back. But now I have about 4 hours left to kill in Toronto. What am I going to do? Now, one of the really cool things about Yonge and Dundas Square is that they have diagonal crosswalks. So on every few cycles, literally every side of traffic has to stop, and then you can walk in a diagonal line. So even though I have no need to be on that side of the street, I'm going to do it. Well, I still have 3.5 hours before the play. I'm going to go see Thor. So the movie was fun, and we've got about an hour before the doors open to the theater. We can explore all the Harry Potter fun in the lobby, but also it looks like the Freedom Convoy's back. Yay! So that's a thing that's happening. And now, in the 1 hour I have before I get to go into the theater, I'm going to go looking for Funko Pops and maybe dinner. Here we go. Welcome to the Eaton Center. Named after the dearly departed Eaton's department store, which is now apparently in Nordstrom, but the name lives on. Now, coming to the Eaton Center growing up, one of my favorite stores to go to was always the Disney store. Sadly, in the last year, every Disney store in Canada has closed, and I'm very interested to see what has become of the space. So let's go give it a visit. Lo and behold, empty storefront. Sad, empty storefront. But yet rising from the ashes like a phoenix. Apparently these are in Canada now. Cool. All right, magical friends, the time has come. The doors open at 6 o'clock. It is now 6:02. I just dropped off my brand new Princess Leia Funko Pop to my car because that's the Star Wars fandom and it has no place where we're going. Let's go. Now, when you're seeing something at the convoy is still going. Now, when you're seeing something at the Ed Mirvish Theatre, there are actually two entrances. There's one on Yonge Street and there's one on Victoria Street. If I was smarter, I would probably be using the Yonge Street entrance because that has like a great hall. Not really a pun, but reference intended. Whereas the Victoria Street entrance is like right into the theater lobby and it's pretty limited space. So I have this theory that everybody is going to be like bottlenecking in there, and it's going to be more congested, and people are going to be like crowding around the souvenir stands right by that entrance, as opposed to the Yonge Street entrance, which would probably have more breathing room. But like a fool, I'm about to go in through the Victoria Street entrance. So wish me luck. Now, I also love how they have all the house emblems just on the outside of the theater. And when you're driving through Toronto, they actually have these on street signs all down the roads. So there we have Gryffindor. Oh my gosh. I just realized that the G is, well, obviously it's a lion, but I just realized that he's like about to eat something with that space in between the G. Ravenclaw, caw-caw, a proud, beautiful eagle. Can't really see it, but Hufflepuff is a badger and Slytherin is a snake. Like, that's the easy one. On this side, Harry Potter. On this side, the Phantom of the Opera is here. Its 10th fantastic year. I feel like that's out of date, but it's a historical relic, so at least Garth gave us something. One thing that was kind of cool was when I got the ticket, it actually said that they encourage people to come dressed in costume. I mean, I was lazy. I'm wearing a Hogwarts shirt. I'm not even really representing the claw. I'm secretly hoping I can get a Ravenclaw shirt here, but I'm so excited to see if we're going to see people in costume.
As it turns out, I didn't actually see anybody in costume at the play. Or maybe I did, I don't know. It was overwhelming. There were so many people there. I mean, this performance was literally sold out. So, suffice it to say, I saw the play. I couldn't record anything actually in the theater, but it was so magical. All right, friends. We've left the theater. I'm in my car. I'm about to drive home. I'm going to give you my full review because that was... Oh, it was so magical, but that script is a piece of garbage. But it was so good. It was so good. And the script is so bad. But I want to see it like 5 more times. Okay, full review coming. And we are back. Now, before I start to talk about the play and give my review of the theatrical experience, I know what some of you are watching this video for. You'll want to see the merch. So we're going to do a quick merchandise haul. I'll show you all the stuff I got, not only at the play, but just throughout the day. I rhymed. So first, of course, we went to the Wizard Market. First, I got this pin with a fantastic quote which says, "Words are, in my not so humble opinion, our most inexhaustible source of magic." It's a fantastic quote. Love it. Next, a Ravenclaw magnet, because I always have to represent the claw, and I try to get Ravenclaw merchandise anytime I can. You will see more Ravenclaw stuff in just a little bit. And finally, the most magical thing of all, a chocolate frog keychain. I just fell in love with this as soon as I saw it. I just love the detailing on this frog, and I know he's not edible, but he looks edible, he looks delicious. But I just love simple stuff like this that I can use in my day-to-day life as a reminder of a day, a moment, or an experience that was particularly special for me. And this day, moment, and experience was special for me, so I can always remember it now with my chocolate frog keychain. Next, of course, as you all saw when I was at the Eaton Center at FYE, I got this amazing Princess Leia Galactic Convention exclusive Funko Pop. I don't have any Princess Leias in my Funko Pop collection, and I had seen this floating around on the internet and thought, that is such a cool pop. I want it so badly, but not badly enough to order it online and pay for shipping, so the stars are lined. I saw her in the store, had to have her. I have zero regrets, but again, she has nothing to do with Harry Potter Day, so she doesn't get to stay on the set. Okay, and now the main attraction, the thing you're all waiting for, the merch that I picked up from the production itself. They had a pretty great selection of merch, and what I appreciated was that it was a mix of the stuff that you would typically find at a big production like this. Things, you know, like mugs, keychains, hats, pens, whatever. But they also had stuff that was unique to the Potter fandom. And then something that I thought was really cool was that they had the soundtrack available as well. And now, if you're not aware, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is not a musical. It is a play. And I'm sure I'm going to touch on this when I get into my review of the production itself, but the music that was composed for this show is gorgeous. It stands on its own apart from the compositions from the film. And I mean, of course, it has to, because you can't try to match or duplicate a John Williams score. But it just stands on its own, and it is pure musical magic. So they do have the soundtrack available on a CD as well as on vinyl. if I was a vinyl record collector, even if I had a vinyl record player, that's something else that I would probably get. But now I've told you all the things I didn't get, I'm going to show you what I actually did get. Now, a long-standing tradition of mine when I go see a play is if they have a magnet, I have to get the magnet. So they had a magnet, I had to get the magnet. Now, as far as show magnets go, this one is pretty unique. Typically, show magnets are this exact model, like the magnet that I got at the Wizarding Market. They're just a rectangle. They usually have the poster image from the show, and then, you know, you can put them all together nicely on your fridge as like a collection of productions that you've seen. This one, however, like, if you can't tell, it's not a rectangle, it's a circle. So it's the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I guess you can kind of say it's the logo. It's the swirl. It's the Time Turner swirl. So it's not going to line up with the rest of my show magnets, and that does kind of annoy me. But on its own, as a magnet and as a memento of the production, I think it's beautiful. I also think they missed a golden opportunity to do Hogwarts house specific magnets, because a big part of the branding for this production is like the reimagined logos for each of the 4 Hogwarts houses, and they had them available as pins, and if I was a pin collector, that would be fantastic. But I didn't get the pin. But you know, I did get to represent my Ravenclaw pride. The t-shirt. Oh, I spent way too much money on this t-shirt. And finally, the last piece of kind of unintentional merchandise that I got was this CAA Ed Mirvish Theatre sippy cup. Now let me explain how this sippy cup came to be. I ordered a beverage at intermission. It was overpriced, and I got to keep the sippy cup. That's kind of an ongoing scam. I'm just going to say it, an ongoing scam at theaters that have big productions like this. I remember one of my first trips to New York, I went to see Chicago. I just ordered a Diet Coke. It was like $11, but I got this beautiful cup. Not too different from this one, but it was branded. It said Chicago. I mean, Mirvish has invested so much time, energy, and most importantly, money into this production of Cursed Child that I am shocked, and dare I say appalled, that they didn't spring for cups that are themed to Cursed Child. Like, they're just missing out on an opportunity there. And it goes hand in hand with something that surprised me. There wasn't really any themed food or drink available, and there were a ton of concessions there. I expected that there would be something Potter themed available from the bar, like at the very least, some kind of Butterbeer-esque concoction, but nothing, just standard theater drinks. The closest they got to theming really was with the food. There were some every flavored beans available, and like the big seller were these sugar cookies that looked like Hogwarts letter envelopes. And that sugar cookie has actually become a rite of passage for anyone who has an Instagram account that went to see Cursed Child. Like, if you went to see Cursed Child and you didn't take a picture or a selfie with the envelope cookie, did you actually see Cursed Child? The answer is no. And like, those cookies were a hot selling item. When I was in line to get my overpriced drink and my cookie, the person in front of me, I kid you not, she bought like 12 of them. I mean, I tried to buy 2. And in fact, I think I paid for 2 cookies, and the lady only gave me 1 cookie. But then I felt too bad to correct her, so I overpaid. I paid double for 1 cookie. That's my sad story. If anyone from Mirvish is watching this and wants to send me a cookie, I will gladly accept, because I'm out of cookie. However, I am happy to report that the food and drink was really the only element of this entire experience that kind of fell by the wayside when it came to theming, because they did not skimp on theming for this entire experience. Like, your Harry Potter experience, your Wizarding World experience starts the minute you walk into the building. So they have some incredible photo ops available. One of my personal favorites was the British style red phone booth. That was a ton of fun. It's almost like you're going into the Ministry of Magic. And of course they have banners for each specific house. I took a couple selfies in front of the Ravenclaw banner. Something extra magical that they had in the lobby was an interactive Patronus encounter. So you could scan a QR code, it would open up Instagram, and then it like took you to this special Cursed Child story filter that would bring these Patronus images to life. I mean, it was kind of hit and miss for me. I kept on trying to bring the cat Patronus to life, and it didn't frickin' work. But it worked for me for the doe, it worked for the phoenix, it worked for, was there a unicorn? I can't remember. It worked for some of the bigger images. The cat, however, was my folly. So if I go back, I want to bring that cat Patronus to life. I do think they could have pushed the augmented reality element a little bit further, and I'm almost positive that I've seen TikToks and Instagram videos showing that other productions of Cursed Child, like the one on Broadway and the one in the UK, have a similar augmented reality experience, but they push it further. Like, I think you can bring some of the Hogwarts portraits to life. I think there's even one production where, like, you can have the candles up on the ceiling like they have in the Great Hall in Hogwarts. Here in Toronto, though, we just get the Patronuses. And I don't want to say just to, like, diminish its cool factor, because it is very cool. But the Mirvish Theatre has, like, half of that building is lobby. There's this giant staircase when you come in, and that is where they have the banners for the houses. I think there would have been a golden opportunity for them to use that space for more of these augmented reality interactive experiences. Just to, you know, bring the magic to life that much more. Oh, but actually, while we're talking about immersion into the story, this is where major spoilers are going to start for the entire video, so turn back if you don't want spoilers. Something that was so cool was that the lobby had very subtle changes during intermission, because, of course, if you don't know the play, again, major spoiler coming out here, Act 1 ends with Voldemort having taken over the entire Wizarding world. So once we walked into the lobby at intermission, all of a sudden the merchandise booths no longer said Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. They were like full out Death Eater propaganda booths. They brought out new pieces of merchandise that weren't there before the show. You could get a Death Eater shirt at intermission, and I'm not even sure if they were available when the show ended. Like, just little things like that made it such a cool experience. But I think at this point, I've spoken about the merch, I've spoken about the theming, I've spoken about the food, the drink, the sugar cookie. Let's talk about the play itself. And again, massive spoilers. Nothing is off limits. So if you don't want to be spoiled, stop watching. Go watch another video. But if you do want to be spoiled, watch on. So anyone who doesn't know, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, it is canonically the 8th story in Harry Potter's legacy. The basic premise is that Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is the story that occurs like 19 years later. So everything that follows the epilogue in the 7th and, so we thought, final story of Harry Potter. So the play opens with Harry dropping his youngest son, Albus Severus Potter, off of the Hogwarts Express. And then Albus Severus, on the Hogwarts Express, ends up befriending Scorpius Malfoy, aka the son of Harry's lifelong nemesis, Draco Malfoy. Now, Albus and Scorpius become like instant BFFs on the train. Once they actually get to Hogwarts and the sorting ceremony happens, that is where things start to go a little awry. Now, Scorpius is sorted into Slytherin, as everyone expects, because he's a Malfoy.
Slytherin!
Well, that makes sense!
But then Albus is also sorted into Slytherin.
Slytherin!
Now, he claims later on in the play that he didn't ask to go into Slytherin, but I think the implication is that, like, he ultimately just wants to spend his years at Hogwarts with his new friend. And then as the years go on, the two of them have pretty dreadful experiences at Hogwarts. Like, they hate their lives, people bully them, and there's this ongoing rumor that Scorpius is actually the illegitimate child of Voldemort. It's a whole thing. But as their years at Hogwarts progress, the two boys get progressively more and more angry and depressed, and then like their father issues escalate, and it gets to a point where, because of reasons, they decide to steal a time turner and start messing with time and continuity. So then they go back in time, they change things, and then the entire Wizarding world gets turned over on its head. There's an alternate reality where Voldemort is in charge, and then like we actually do meet the heir of Voldemort. It's like, a lot happens. A lot happens. There's a lot packed into this one play. So much so that when this play actually premiered, it was 2 plays. So when Cursed Child first premiered, it was Harry Potter and the Cursed Child Part 1 and Harry Potter and the Cursed Child Part 2. And if you wanted to see the whole story unfold, you had to buy 2 separate tickets to 2 separate plays. It was a giant money grab. So after all theaters shut down in 2020, the creative team for Cursed Child decided, you know what, maybe we should condense this into one play. So when Broadway reopened and when the production in Toronto opened, Cursed Child all of a sudden became one performance. I think you could still see it split into 2 parts in England, but that's the only place you can see the original production. As it stands now, at the very least in Canada, if you want to see Cursed Child, it's one performance. It's still a long night. It still comes in at like almost 3.5 hours, but that's shorter than 7 hours. Now, one thing I was very curious about, and dare I say kind of skeptical about, was how effective the production was going to be, knowing that they literally cut out half of the story. You know, going from 2 plays into 1 play, you're losing like hours worth of material. Is the story still going to translate? I am so happy to say that 100% yes, it does. Now, it's been a few years since I read the play, but I did remember the key plot points and the key arc and everything that had to do with Scorpius and Albus's story, and it was all still there. Almost to the point where I was thinking, what did they actually cut? I went back and found out that what they cut was, in fact, a ton of flashbacks to stuff from the original Harry Potter novels. So, there were all kinds of flashback scenes where we got to see young Harry interacting with Hagrid, young Harry interacting with the Dursleys, and there were some scenes that took place in, like, present day as well. But I think cutting out the stuff that they cut only helped the narrative. I think part of the reason that everybody hated this play when it first came out was that it was so convoluted. And I think that's the classic trap that we've seen with Harry Potter in the past, where like the people who are making the money off of it recognize that the more Potter they put out into the world, the more of a financial return they're going to see. And now looking back, what I realize is that that meant that they put in a lot of unnecessary filler, specifically things to cater to the Harry Potter fandom, because it was putting characters and moments on stage that we know and love from the books, but it was information that anyone seeing this play would already have in the back of their minds. So ultimately, if you're seeing Harry Potter and the Cursed Child in 2 parts, it's like you're paying double the price just to see Hagrid. I think the reason that this production works better than it would if it was split into 2 plays is that now we don't have any distractions from the central narrative, which is the story of Albus and Scorpius and their relationship. And speaking of their relationship, that is the biggest thing that I think benefited from this new edit that they did on the script. Now, one of the big complaints from Potterheads when Cursed Child was first released unto the world was that it kind of read like bad fan fiction, specifically with the characters that we already knew and loved. A lot of people said that the way Harry was characterized was very, I guess, out of character for him, because one of the most pivotal moments is him having a fight with Albus saying, "I wish you weren't my son." Personally, that never bothered me. Like, I think Harry Potter is someone who has so much childhood trauma. He is such an imperfect, flawed character that for him to have an outburst like that, I don't think that's out of character. In fact, I very much like how Harry is portrayed as an adult. But there are certain characters from the original series that I don't care for what they did, specifically Cedric. Cedric Diggory would never murder somebody. Cedric Diggory would never be a Death Eater, but neither here nor there. What I'm saying is that the established characters, they were very hit and miss with how they were portrayed in this new story. But the new characters, I have always thought were fantastic. I think the way that they've developed the new characters makes total sense, and I specifically love Albus and Scorpius. And going back to what I was saying, their relationship was something that kind of came under fire when Cursed Child was first introduced to the world, for a lot of reasons from all different directions. I think that has been greatly improved by this new edit, because for a little bit of context, Albus and Scorpius' relationship, I feel, is beautifully developed and nuanced in the original published play. Like, they are undoubtedly each other's rock and they're best friends, and yes, there are a lot of hints and allusions that as they get older, it might blossom into something like of a more romantic nature. Now, when the majority of this play takes place, the 2 characters are 14, so like they're not thinking about their love lives, they're like more preoccupied with having to save the world and reset the timeline. But I wouldn't be surprised if we found out that canonically, by the time they reach 6th or 7th year, they could be dating. As adults, they could even be married to one another. But this is the thing. As wonderfully nuanced and developed as that relationship is in the play, in the first published edition, they squash any possibility of those 2 having a romantic future in the last scene when Scorpius comes in and he's like, Albus, I asked this girl out on a date." That always felt so weird. Almost like somebody, let's be honest, probably J.K. Rowling, forced it to be tacked on at the end to let the audience know, no, don't worry, there is no way that these characters could possibly be gay. Now, again, they're 14. And that's not what the story is about. But what I respect is that in this new revision, they just got rid of that scene. They adjusted it so that Scorpius is only asking a popular girl to be his friend. It's helping him overcome his social anxiety. And the really nice thing is that it's still leaving the nature of the relationship between these two characters open to interpretation, open to develop further as the two of them get older. It unifies the heart of the play in a way that makes it a lot stronger than it was in its original form. And just jumping off of that, I think all of the edits that have been made to condense it into one play have just helped to strengthen the overall exploration of the theme of, I guess, generational trauma. Like, I was watching this and thinking this could almost be called Harry Potter and the Daddy Issues. Because, that's just the ongoing thread. All of the characters in this piece, all of the central characters, have some kind of unresolved issue with their parents, specifically with their dads. We have the relationship between Albus and Harry, then we have the relationship between Draco and Scorpius, and between those two sets of dads, Draco actually comes off as being the more sympathetic father, which I thought was fascinating. Oof, and don't even get me started on Delphi. Like, we want to talk about daddy issues? She's willing to destroy the entire world and the timeline just so that she can have a few moments with Daddy Voldemort? So, my overall verdict for this new adaptation of the text, condensing it, 100% effective to make it a stronger piece of theater. But now let's talk about the performance itself. As I said, this production is a big deal and especially exciting for me because it's an all-Canadian cast. I mean, we don't get all-Canadian casts in all-Canadian productions very often. The cast that they've assembled for Cursed Child, it is second to none. And I think part of the reason that this production works so well is the same reason that the Harry Potter films work so well. Because as outlandish as the story might be, it is being performed by the top tier working actors in their field. Veterans of the Shaw Festival and the Stratford Shakespeare Festival are headlining this production. The ensemble that they have is this amazing blend of established actors as well as amazing up-and-coming actors, and they're just missing a match. But let me talk about some of the standout performances in this show. Here we go. Actually, a really fun thing that I'm sure anyone else who's been to acting school can identify with is whenever I go see a show now, when I'm flipping through the cast bios, it's kind of like a who's who of people I went to school with, so that's fun. For example, I went to university with the Sorting Hat. I went to high school with the guy playing Carl Jenkins. I once played poker in Newfoundland with Draco Malfoy. That's a funny sentence, long story there. Okay, and I didn't go to school with the guy playing Scorpius Malfoy, but his dad was a professor at the university where I studied theater, and I saw him in a bunch of plays in Edmonton, and he is flippin' amazing. Okay, well, I guess I'm getting into giving my cast reviews now. So, Thomas Mitchell Barnet as Scorpius. I think he is the one that carries this production. Now, admittedly, in the earlier scenes, I wasn't a fan of his characterization of Scorpius. I think nothing to do with him specifically. I think it's the way that he was directed. Since when we first meet Scorpius, he's an 11-year-old kid. So there were some vocal nuances that I found, I don't know, were weird choices.
Sweets, they always help you make friends!
But as he aged into the character, once we got into the bulk of the show, I just think, he was so captivating to watch. Specifically the scene in the library where Scorpius has his little meltdown. My heart was melting for him. Thomas Barnet is a frickin' amazing actor. And I'm so happy to see him in this role, carrying this show. He was fantastic. Okay, another standout for me. Sara Farb as Delphi. Now, I've been watching Sara Farb in productions for probably almost 10 years now, and she never ceases to amaze me. I mean, everything that I see her in, I'm just in more and more awe of what an incredible actor she is. Okay, Fiona Reid. Now, Fiona Reid is a fascinating casting choice for this production, and she's actually a choice that makes a ton of sense. Fiona Reid is one of the most established actors in Canada. She's done seasons at the Shaw Festival, at the Stratford Festival, she's worked at the Citadel Theatre in Edmonton, she even did Harry Potter and the Cursed Child on Broadway, so she was definitely within her element. But I think the weird thing, and it's not even to do with her performance per se, it's to do with the casting choice, because she is playing both Minerva McGonagall as well as Dolores Umbridge. And that is a double casting choice that really makes no sense in my mind. I don't think it benefits the production whatsoever. It's really the same issue that I had when I was talking about Back to the Future the musical, because in Back to the Future the musical, they have the same performer playing Mayor Goldie Wilson as well as Marvin Berry. And there are other people in the cast that could have played one of those roles. I don't think there's any narrative reason to double cast those roles in Back to the Future. I don't think there's any narrative reason to double cast McGonagall as well as Umbridge. The only reason for double casting of that nature is if you're working with an ensemble that doesn't have another person that can embody that role. But this is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. The cast is massive. There was no reason they couldn't have had another actor playing one of those two characters. Like, for example, Madame Hooch is a character who shows up towards the beginning of the play. I don't understand why they didn't just have that actress also play Umbridge, because I couldn't tell you what else that performer did in the production aside from being a member of the ensemble. So when you have another fantastic role, and I'm sure an equally capable performer within the company, it just, I don't know, it doesn't seem right to me to deprive a showcased role from another performer and then just kind of putting all the eggs in one basket of the more established performer. That's just where I stand there. But it's always a joy to see Fiona Reid on stage. I did love her as McGonagall. I loved her as Umbridge. I guess I just didn't love the double casting there. Although, if we're talking about one performer playing multiple roles, a situation where I think that worked beautifully, I would almost say, magically, was the performer that I saw who played, wait for it, Amos Diggory, Professor Dumbledore, and Professor Snape. This is the thing. I did not realize until going home and reading the program that those three roles were being played by the same person. And this is why that's a big deal. Because they were being played by a performer that I, again, like Sarah Farb, a performer that I have been watching in productions for well over 10 years. And that performer was Canadian treasure. I'm just going to call him a Canadian treasure. Canadian treasure, Shawn Wright. Now, for a little bit of context, Shawn Wright, I've always thought of him kind of like the Canadian Nathan Lane. I'm probably just saying that because I saw him play Nathan Detroit in Guys and Dolls, which was also a Nathan Lane role. But I do think there's a little bit of crossover in their careers and the types of roles that the two of them play. What astounded me was that this was my first time seeing Shawn Wright play these types of roles. I've never seen him so grounded, so dramatic. I mean, as Amos Diggory, he was absolutely heartbreaking. As Dumbledore, he just had this eerie, calm, I don't know, like almost ghostly energy to him that was just so perfect for how Dumbledore is portrayed in this production. And as Severus Snape, I think he found that beautiful balance between Snape's dark side but also his humanity that made Alan Rickman's performance so good. And this is what's so mind-blowing about Shawn Wright in those roles. I just lucked out, and I saw him that night doing his understudy track, because typically Shawn Wright plays Voldemort, which is another role that I would absolutely never think to cast Shawn Wright in, but after seeing him in these three roles, like, I feel like the man can do absolutely anything. And I mean, I could just go on and gush about each individual cast member, because there truthfully was not a weak link in this production. The reason you go to see this, truthfully, is for the cast. Well, actually, for the cast and for the magic. The one thing that I've always heard about Cursed Child was people saying the play itself, like the written material, might not be good, but the production value and the magic is what you go see it for. And I was very pleasantly surprised at how good the performances were and how they really breathed life into the text in a way that I didn't think was going to be possible. But the magic was next level. The magic did not disappoint. I mean, we've seen all of these spells in the films. It takes on a completely new vibe when you get to see it done in front of you. And I mean, this was probably the first production in my life where I have been legitimately frightened. The way that they have the dementors worked into the production, it is chilling. It is spine-tingling. It was amazing. And the way that they use Voldemort, It is so powerful. It's so simple, but it is so powerful. I mean, part of the reason that they gutted and rebuilt the entire audience structure in the Ed Mirvish Theatre was specifically for the Voldemort moment. All he does is walk up the center aisle, and I had an aisle seat, so Voldemort walked like right next to me. It was so cool and so terrifying. And the theatricality of this production is what I think makes it a standout. And when I say theatricality, like, I don't just mean the magic tricks, which, yes, are very cool, but this is so uniquely theatrical. Like, it's performed in a way that can't really be done or replicated in a film. The way that they utilize movement, the way that they utilize the set, it is through and through a piece of theater. And it was amazing just seeing a piece of theater after so many years. And the really cool thing is that this production has just completely reimagined the look and the sound of the Wizarding World. You know, I think we all have an idea of what the world of Harry Potter looks and sounds like based on the films, because we have well over 10 films now that take place in the Wizarding World, but this is completely its own thing. They weren't afraid to make bold departures from, like, the look and the sound that we associate with the films, and I think it paid off tenfold, 100-fold. I think I, like almost everybody, just have the world of the films so heavily ingrained in my mind that seeing this, it was just this breath of fresh air. It was like reading the books all over again. It felt like, I don't know what it was. It might have been the imaginative quality, it might have been the playful nature of theater. Something about it felt like I was being thrown into the world of the books as opposed to watching the world of the films. Is that pretentious enough? I don't know. Maybe. All that to say, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Is it a great piece of theater? I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. As a Harry Potter fan, this experience is a 10 out of 10. I truthfully feel like you need to be a Harry Potter fan to fully enjoy this experience. If I was seeing this play without any context from the Harry Potter franchise, I would be so confused. Even though the story is more streamlined now as a single play, there is a lot of context that you need to be able to fully enjoy it and to understand what is happening. This is an experience for Harry Potter fans, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, I am all about making theater accessible. I am all about taking popular entertainment, but then still treating it with the same reverence and the same respect that you would treat something by Shakespeare or by Shaw. So to see the caliber of talent that's coming together to put this production on stage, it's everything that I personally want from a night at the theater. And with that, friends, this concludes yet another episode of Teacup 4-1. Now let me know in the comment section down below, have you seen Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and what did you think? And also let me know if you'd be interested in seeing more Teacup Theatre reviews, because again, everything is starting to open up. I live like around the corner from the Shaw Festival. I can take you to Stratford. I can do all of those things. Let me know. And if you want to be the first to know when I do more fun videos, whether I'm talking about theater, Disney, Shakespeare, Harry Potter, sometimes cats, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. And if you haven't subscribed already, it is so easy. All you have to do is click on my face. Thanks for joining me again today, everyone. My name is Matt and I have 2 degrees, and this has been the Teacup for 1. Wizzo!